Rachel Zegler just keeps making things worse with the Walt Disney Company. The more that she tries to defend this movie, the more that she tries to spew her agenda onto the general public, it's only making matters worse. Not just for Bob Iger, but for whatever is left of the image of Disney as a whole.
Jonah Platt, whose father helped produce the latest Snow White film, had some very harsh words for star Rachel Zegler.
For context, Variety wrote a report recently titled Inside Disney's Snow White Fiasco, Death Threats, Beefed Up Security, and a Social Media Guru for Rachel Zegler. Evie Magazine wrote on X, when you compare how Rachel Zegler spoke about Snow White to how other actresses who played live-action Disney princesses spoke about their character, really underlines just how poorly she carried herself.
Imagine this. A young star, handpicked to breathe new life into Disney's most iconic princess, ends up at the center of a Hollywood train wreck. Has Rachel Zegler accidentally torched Snow White's legacy, or was she just the match that lit a fire already waiting to burn? Buckle up, because this story's got more twists than a fairy tale gone wrong.
I am in the thick of rehearsals for Romeo plus Juliet, so I'm gonna get out of here. Bye for now. The Variety story notes how a couple of minutes after posting this, she replied to her own tweet and wrote, "And always remember, free Palestine."
Let's start with the hype. Disney poured somewhere between $240 and $270 million into their live-action Snow White remake, banking on a cast of big names and a modern spin to rake in the cash. This wasn't just another reboot. It was supposed to be a crown jewel, a dazzling update to the 1937 classic that kicked off Walt's animation empire. But when the curtains finally parted on March 21st, 2025, the numbers told a brutal truth. $43 million domestic, $87 million worldwide. That's not a flop, that's a catastrophe. Critics tore it apart, fans stayed home, and Disney execs were left scrambling. What went so wrong with a project that had everything going for it?
Variety breaks down how after this tweet went viral, the studio was shocked that she would mix a promo tweet with a political statement. As a result, Mark Platt flew to New York to speak with her in person.
Narcissism is not something to be coddled or encouraged. Zegler isn't the only one who has made political statements, though. Her co-star Gal Gadot, who plays the Evil Queen, expressed her staunch support for Israel.
Enter Rachel Zegler, the 23-year-old breakout from West Side Story, cast as Snow White herself. From the jump, she didn't hold back. In interviews, she called the original film dated and weird, slamming the prince as a stalker who swoops in to kiss a comatose princess. Fair point or not, it didn't sit right with fans who grew up cherishing that old-school charm. She doubled down, saying her Snow White wouldn't be some damsel dreaming of true love. She'd be a leader, fierce and independent. Bold? Sure. But to a lot of Disney diehards, it felt like she was spitting on a sacred story. The backlash started brewing, and Zegler's unfiltered vibe was already rubbing people the wrong way, but that was just the warm-up.
Snow White's budget was around $240 to $270 million. It has made $43 million domestically so far and around $84 million globally per Box Office Pro.
The film received backlash for various reasons in the lead up to its release. Zegler had called the original Snow White movie dated and weird and said Prince Charming was a stalker.
Then came the tweet that sent Disney into a tailspin. Last August, Zegler hit up X to thank fans after the Snow White trailer racked up 120 million views in a day. Sweet, right? Except a minute later, she dropped a bombshell in the same thread. And always remember, free Palestine. Boom, 8.8 million views, and the internet lost its mind. Inside Disney, execs were stunned. Mixing a promo post for a $270 million tentpole with a political hot potato? To them, it was like tossing a grenade into an already shaky rollout. Producer Mark Platt didn't waste time. He hopped a plane to New York to confront her face to face. Zegler stood her ground, refusing to delete it, and the studio's panic meter shot through the roof. But that wasn't the whole story.
Evie Magazine wrote on X, when you compare how Rachel Zegler spoke about Snow White to how other actresses who played live-action Disney princesses spoke about their character, really underlines just how poorly she carried herself.
I'll quickly mention this. The son of Snow White producer Mark Platt, Jonah Platt is the son's name. He is speaking out publicly against Rachel Zegler and blaming her for the film's catastrophic failure at the box office.
Cue Gal Gadot, the evil queen herself, and a proud Israeli who's never shied away from supporting her homeland. After Zegler's tweet went viral, death threats started piling up against Gadot, enough that Disney had to shell out for extra security for the mother of 4. Suddenly, this wasn't just about a movie, it was a clash of co-stars with opposing views, playing out in real time. Sources say the two got along fine during filming, but by premiere time, Disney was keeping them apart. Separate junkets, separate seats at the El Capitan Theater. No bad blood between them maybe, but the optics were a mess, and what happened next would shock everyone.
I mean, he's totally right. Now, of course, as we covered, the movie is terrible anyway in its own right. It was probably going to underperform regardless. People are tired of the soulless cash grab remake thing.
Fast forward to this spring, Zegler's hauled into an emergency meeting with Disney's legal team. Insiders say tensions had hit a breaking point. Talk of contract violations, reputational damage, even lawsuits was on the table. She showed up with her own counsel, ready for a fight. Disney's beef, her comments, her posts, her whole vibe might have breached promo obligations or trashed the brand's legacy. The film was already bleeding cash, and the studio was desperate to pin the blame somewhere. Zegler's camp fired back, claiming she was just following orders to push a progressive angle. Either way, this wasn't a casual chat, it was a high-stakes showdown, and the stakes couldn't be higher.
The movie has all kinds of problems that could be pinned partly on the producer. Like, the producer did not do a good job. Nobody who produced this movie did a good job. Apart from all of the political controversy started by the actress. So the movie had all kinds of problems creatively and conceptually.
Then Jonah Platt, son of producer Mark, threw gasoline on the fire. He took to Instagram, ripping into Zegler with some choice words. Narcissism. Immature, dragging her politics into a multi-million-dollar gig. He claimed her actions tanked the box office, pointing to that Free Palestine post and her later anti-Trump rants, like fuck Donald Trump after the 2024 election, as proof she'd alienated half the audience. Fans pounced, calling him a nepo baby with an axe to grind, but his outburst added a wild personal twist. Was this just a ticked-off producer's kid, or did he have a point? The plot thickened faster than anyone could keep up.
She believes that she should be able to express herself and speak her truth or whatever nonsense, regardless of the consequences to everybody else. In reality, you have a job. You're getting paid to do this job. You signed on the dotted line. You took on the role. You took the job. And that job comes with certain basic responsibilities.
But hold up, some say Zegler's not the only one to blame. Whispers from inside Disney hint at a bigger mess. Executive infighting, mixed signals, maybe even sabotage. One camp wanted a fresh, edgy Snow White. Another warned against straying too far from the fairy tale roots. The dwarfs got a radical CGI makeover after Peter Dinklage called out the original stereotypes. Progressive, sure, but fans hated it. Leaked emails show execs fretting over the direction months before release. Yet no one pulled the plug. Zegler's team says Disney fed her those modern leader talking points, then hung her out to dry when it backfired. Was she the fall guy for a studio that couldn't get its act together?
There's no doubt that she drove the final nail into this movie's coffin. She probably drove the final 2 or 3 nails into the coffin. And a lot of what you see with Zegler is really just this pretty common Gen Z mentality and approach to work.
Meanwhile, the fans weren't having it. Social media lit up with rage. Some called the remake woke garbage. Others mourned the loss of that whimsical magic. Trailers racked up millions of dislikes. Theaters sat half empty. And longtime Disney buffs accused the studio of selling out their childhoods. It wasn't just Zegler's sound bites. People are fed up with soulless cash grab remakes. Snow White, once the gold standard of Disney's legacy, turned into a punching bag, and shareholders started sweating. If this keeps up, they worry the whole live-action gravy train could derail.
And one of the most basic is the responsibility to control yourself and comport yourself a certain way publicly so that you don't harm the project and thereby harm all the hundreds of other people who are working on it. Because she's not stupid. Well, she might be stupid, but she's not so dumb that she didn't realize that by, for example, coming out and saying that all Trump supporters deserve to suffer.
Zegler's not going down quietly though. She's pushing back hard, saying Disney scripted her to sell this empowering Snow White. Talking points and all, leaked notes back her up. Execs wanted a sharp break from the 1937 romance, betting big on a Gen Z friendly vibe. Now that it's crashed, she feels scapegoated for doing her job. Supporters like Scream's Melissa Barrera, who got axed for her own pro-Palestine stance, say she's a badass for not buckling. Critics, though, argue she hammered the final nails into the coffin with her unfiltered takes. Who's right? That's the $1 million question. Or, well, the $270 million one.
What's our friend screaming?
Wow.
And it's
That was
nobody was in there.
disturbing.
Nobody
Can
was
you
in
go to the, yeah, that's very,
bad.
so this is Bob Iger. Disney's Bob Iger says their mission is to entertain, not send messaging as Snow White sales compete for worst performing live action Disney adaptation ever.
So here we are. Snow White's a disaster, Disney's bleeding cash, and Zegler's in the crosshairs. The film's lost over $180 million and counting, one of the worst flops in the studio's live-action remake spree. Bob Iger's preaching entertainment, not messaging. But the damage is done. Can Disney bounce back from this fairy tale nightmare? Or is Zegler just the face of a deeper rot in the Magic Kingdom? Think about that and let me know what you reckon below.